Welcome to the Catholic Life Coach Podcast. My name is Carla Fitz. I'm a certified life coach, wife, and mom of two beautiful little girls and a handsome little boy. My hope for this podcast is to support and empower other Catholic women to live their most authentic life, to share life coaching tools from a Catholic perspective in order to help you live a more fulfilling and aligned life filled with peace, joy, and abundance. Let's get started. Hello, my loves, and welcome to this week's episode. I am honored and thrilled to be here with a friend today, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with my new friend. Please introduce yourself and tell us all about you.
Hi, my name is Kylie Hein, and I'm so glad to be here, Carla. We just have so much in common, and being from Nebraska, it's just always super fun to make those connections. So, I am a certified Catholic mind coach and spiritual director. I work a lot with women who struggle with many of the same things that I did. Those high achievers who were always going after the next thing, want to read the next book, take the next course, find that next big achievement. And I always say that these women are really searching for praise, perfection, and productivity. That's kind of where they live and where they find their worth. And it's beautiful, but it also can be a bit of a problem because
Mm-hmm.
when we are striving after those things, it really takes away from our peace. We live in a constant state of stress and anxiety, and we don't even realize we don't acknowledge it because it's kind of like a badge of honor that we can operate in that state of stress. We can take on all of these things and we can still perform really well.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that. So it's kind of like this badge of honor. And so I really work with women who want to start creating more space for God. And in doing so, they get a lot more confidence and clarity in what it is that they're actually being asked to do in their day. And with that comes so much peace. They
Okay.
start setting things down. They start knowing exactly where all their energy is supposed to be put. And instead of feeling stretched in a million different directions, they kind of just know this is where I'm supposed to be. And I can rest here and I can enjoy the moment and not snap at my kids or my husband or any of those things because I know that this is my purpose and I am living it.
Yes, I love that so much. I have been asked that question a lot lately. It's like, how do you maintain all the things that are happening in your life? And that's it. It's like when you are in alignment of like the things that God is really truly putting in your heart to do rather than just stretching ourselves thin and wanting to do it all. It's very, very powerful. I love it. Kelly, I want to know how you got into life coaching.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I was always that high achiever. I went to a small school, public school, and I was involved in everything. I mean, everything you could
Mhm.
be in, I was in. And then I went into teaching. I was a middle school and high school math teacher for 13 years. And Carla, I know you know what it's like to be a teacher. It's vast chaos and it's beautiful chaos, but it is chaos. And
Mhm.
so throughout that process, I was at a Catholic school and I started helping on retreats. And when I was invited, I would say, I really don't think I'm the right person for that. But the Lord was so persistent and he kept putting these opportunities in front of me. So eventually, I found that the place I really came alive was talking about my faith. And it was helping other people to go more deeply into their faith. But I didn't know how to do that in a classroom, and I didn't know what the Lord was calling me to outside of the classroom because it felt like that's all that I knew. I knew how to be a really great teacher, and I didn't know what some of my other gifts were. So I started exploring mindset because students in math really struggle. They have a lot of beliefs about themselves and what they're capable of. And things just started to click for me about my own personal life of why I felt like this need for perfection.
Mhm.
And I also had gotten my master's in ministry and knew I wanted to do something more in alignment with that. I eventually found Metanoia Catholic and I went through their program, and coaching just transformed my life.
Yeah.
It really helped me to just stop being fearful and to start trusting in the Lord that He had the next step plan, even if I couldn't see it. And I just had to take that step of faith. Not a huge leap, just a little step, trust Him that He was going to take care of what came next. And I did have other skills that I'd be able to use. And then eventually that led to spiritual direction. And it is a beautiful pairing where I get to bring in so many faith components and bring the Lord into my coaching. But I get to help women who are, like I said before, are struggling with a lot of the things that I struggled with my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what's beautiful, right? Because we were trained by different programs, kind of. I was trained by a different program that certified metanoia, and so it's like it's kind of the
Yes.
same kind of family in different kind of style of teaching. But what I love about it is that it's actually our stories that bring in our clients. Like it's something that we share with them because that's what I found so beautiful. Like I coach most of my clients are women who have a big ambition in their hearts. Like they have a big dream that they want to follow, but they're so scared to do it and feel almost a bit of shame of like, should I even want this thing? And we are trying to help them overcome that, right? But the reason why I coach on that is because I've been there. And same with you. It's like it's something that even though it was a struggle in our life, and it still is because it's part of us, it was a struggle that we needed to overcome in order to help more people. And that's what I think is so beautiful about coaching, because every single one of my coaches has struggled with the thing that they're now helping me. And
Hmm.
I love that because it's like that healing that comes from God that gets passed in and it's spread around, which I love. That's amazing. I love that.
Absolutely.
I want you to speak a little bit about when we were talking ahead of time before starting recording. We were talking about the clutter that happens in our minds, and I want you to speak a little bit about this topic because this is something that I love to compare with our house, right? We have a home in our mind and in our hearts, and yes, I want you to go into that a little bit.
Yeah. People who have never heard of coaching don't really know what it is. And so the best tangible expression that I can give them is to just think about what happens when you encounter physical clutter. If you walk into your home and there are piles of laundry on the couch, the kids' shoes are all over, the dishes are overflowing, there is something physical that happens in your body and in your brain. Clutter signals unfinished business. It increases your stress and your anxiety. Studies link messy homes to higher cortisol levels, reduced focus, procrastination, mental fatigue. In some people, it can even go as far as to lead to depression because it feels like I'm never going to get a hold of this. I think, especially of people who have ADHD, and it's just really a struggle to be able to clear things and organize. And the thing with mental clutter is, or with physical clutter, excuse me, is we can walk out of that room and we can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
When it's mental clutter, we can't get away from it. We can kind of try to sidetrack ourselves by binge watching Netflix, by staying super busy, which a lot of us do. We just get busy, busy, busy because we don't want to look at what's going on inside.
Mhm.
And that I think is why a lot of people avoid prayer as well. They don't want to look at what's going on inside because it's uncomfortable. And so coaching really helps us declutter some of those thoughts. First, understand what thoughts are in our minds, just becoming aware what's in there. What have we tucked away? What have we been replaying over and over in our minds since we were 5 or 6 years old? That's actually not true. So we bring these thoughts into the light and we can actually look at what does God say is truth? Does this align with what he says about me? Does this align with who he is? Or is this something that I've picked up somewhere along the way from culture, from an experience I had, from what I thought someone else perceived about me? And can I start to let those things go?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of coaching is it really does declutter. And as we start to do that, as we have less busyness in our minds, we
Hmm.
know more fully who we are and our identity in Christ. We're able to hear God so much more clearly
Hmm.
because when we go to sit down to pray, all of this craziness isn't going on. We're actually able to focus on Him. And I will just share that is something that I found so profound is when I was studying for spiritual direction. And I was meeting with a spiritual director every single week for 9 months. Most people don't do that. You meet maybe once a month if you have a spiritual director. So I was meeting with my spiritual director every week. but I was also getting coached every week. And what I found was my sessions with my spiritual director went infinitely deeper because I did not have all of the everyday stuff
Mm-hmm.
cluttering my mind. I wasn't going to spiritual direction and worried about what was going on with my kids, what was going on with my job, what was going on with my finances. I was able to just really sit and be present with what the Lord was doing in me. And I think that's a lot of the clarity that we get from coaching.
Yeah. I recently, my husband and I were talking about coaching because he had asked the priest for spiritual direction. And the priest himself was like, most people don't need spiritual direction. Like, most people need the coaching piece first. So
Mhm.
that when they come to spiritual direction, there is that sense of openness and readiness to receive and cleaning up what's happening inside of our minds. One of the things that when you were saying the declutter piece that popped in my head was I fell in love with minimalism, like just having the little as possible. Which, by the way, you guys have 3 kids. In all full honesty, it's not easy. We have a lot of toys in the house, but we we've been like trying to just declutter, right? But when you start living in a style of home where you have very little or the special things, there is a sense of peace that is not comparing, like you cannot compare. And I feel like the same thing happens with our minds. There it's just like, how can we simplify our thoughts and start speaking truth into the thoughts that are coming every single morning? And I love that you also mentioned prayer because the reason why prayer is so uncomfortable is because there's silence. And when there's silence, there's an opportunity for things to pop out of your mind and you to become aware of it. And we most of the time don't like our thoughts. In not sometimes not even that we don't like it. Sometimes we don't even want to look at them. We're just like, let's just stay in there and pretend you're not in there. But the thing is they are, and they cloud our vision versus just letting us see the direction God is leading us.
Absolutely. I think there's such a form of detachment that comes by recognizing our thoughts
Mm-hmm.
because just like when you're pulling out all the old clothes and you're like, this doesn't fit anymore,
Yeah.
I can get rid of it. Or this was from a deceased family member. Do I really need to keep this for the next 30 years and then have my children throw it out because they don't even know what it's from?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that we don't keep any of those things. But there's a sense of detachment that comes when we declutter in our homes. And that same thing comes when we start to declutter in our minds and some of these self-beliefs that we have that are so deeply embedded that we believe that's who we are
Yeah.
when it's actually in contradiction to who Christ tells us that we are.
Yeah. And it's just like, for me, it's like when I tell my clients, when we are looking into your thoughts and into our thoughts, it's not about judging them. It's about simply seeing what's inside and what is something that we on purpose want to continue believing and what's something that is just not benefiting us anymore. And what comes to my mind is there's this story about this mom that puts in the turkey in the oven or something like that. And there's a specific setting that she uses. And she's like, why do you do that? She's like, I don't know. My mom did it that way. And the mom was like, well, why do you do it this way, the grandma? I don't know. My mom did it that way. So there's really like, there are thoughts that we have inside of us that we don't even know why it's there. It's just a tradition almost. Like mom passed it, grandma passed it, and we have it and we believe it, but they are not necessarily truth. That's why, like what you said about speaking truth to our thoughts is very, very powerful because we start living our life more on purpose rather than the kind of cooking that grandma left for us or something like that.
Yes. And one of my favorite questions to ask when I'm coaching, once we establish is it true or not true? Because sometimes things can feel so true, and sometimes they actually are true. But even if it's true, is it helpful? Does
Yes.
it help you grow in holiness? Does it get you any closer to your goal? Because if not, then God gave you free will. You can
Yes.
choose to focus on something different.
Yes. And that authority is beautiful. It's just reminding ourselves of like, oh, wait, I don't have to believe this and I can choose. I love it. One of the things that you and I were talking ahead of time as well, and that is coming up as I'm hearing you do this, say this, is that each of us has, like you had mentioned before our call, a different temperament, a different way of processing emotions, a different way of seeing our beliefs and to react to different circumstances. And you have lots of information in this, and I really want you to share at least a little bit about each one of them and talk a little bit about that. Hey there, it's me, Carla Fitz. I wanted to interrupt the podcast to share something amazing with you. If you have been feeling the nudge in your heart to reconnect with yourself and God in a deeper way, I want to personally invite you to something truly special. This November, I am hosting the Radiant Soul Retreat in Assisi, Italy. Yes, Assisi, the land of Saint Francis, Saint Clare, San Rufino, and Blessed Carlo Acutis. This retreat is for Catholic women who are ready to rediscover the woman God created them to be through beauty, prayer, coaching, community, and rest. We will spend 7 days in the heart of Italy, soaking up the peace of Assisi, walking in the footsteps of the saints, and creating space for God to move within our hearts and our lives. If you are craving clarity, alignment, and simply time to breathe and hear His voice again, this is for you. If you want to learn more, head to my website, carlafitz.com, and get into the retreat. Or you can also go into the description of the podcast, and in there you will find the link to apply today. I would love to walk with you in the streets of Assisi. Sending you so many blessings and hope to see you soon.
Yes. So temperaments work is a huge part of my coaching. I think it's such a beautiful way to help us understand how we operate. So, just to be really clear, your temperament is not who you are. It is not your identity. It is kind of like if we zoomed in on a piece of you, it helps us with understanding. I love St. Teresa of Avila. She says that the doorway to the interior castle is through prayer and reflection. And so your temperament is a way to just kind of reflect on how you are naturally created. How did God design you? So it's different than your character, which is kind of formed over time. Your temperament is this is the way when you were formed in the womb that God made you to respond to things. So there are four different temperaments. We have all of them within us. And Christ had the perfect combination. He had all of the virtues of each of these four temperaments, and he had none of the vices. We are not designed that way. So I'll give you a brief overview of the temperaments, but just know most people are a blend because again, we have all four, but you have two that are typically more prominent. So you have the choleric. The choleric is someone who is quick to react. So your husband walks in the room and you might be quick to jump to an assumption about something he did or did not do. And you're going to let that linger. Even if you're wrong, it's not going to go away right away. So you're quick to react, you're slow to move on. You are very results oriented. So your clerics might be when you think of someone like the CEO, they like to be in control and they like to get things done. They do not want to waste time. But their temptation is anger because when they're not in control, which we will see come up in coaching if you know someone's temperament, when they're not in control, that's very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it can create disruption because it's hard for them to trust God to be in control because they want to be in control. They want to know the outcome. So, an example of a choleric would be someone like St. Paul or Mother Angelica. They're often an extroverted temperament. The other extroverted temperament is the sanguine. So, sanguines are also quick to react, but they're really quick to move on. So, they might be mad. I think of my daughter having a fit. She goes in her room. 5 minutes later, she comes and gives me a hug. And it's like, Mom, I love you, right? She's quick to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Sanguines are very people oriented. They can enjoy being the center of attention. They can also kind of enjoy some of the arts and those types of things. Their desire really is fun, though. They want to have fun. And the temptation then for them is frills. So I don't want to do this job because it's not fun anymore. So they get distracted and they go to the next thing. So they're these people who kind of start a project and then they jump to the next project and then they jump to the next project. So again, all of these temperaments have a lot of virtues, but they also have areas where they really struggle and blind
Yeah.
spots. The melancholic, this person is slow to react, but they're also slow to move on. They are very quality oriented. So their desire is perfection. It's the perfectionist who's in a classroom, you put something on the board, they're going to be like, Mrs. Hein, you have a typo. right? And it's going to make them crazy because they just want things to be right. It's if you think of being in the classroom, it's the student who gets a 99 and they cry because they wanted the 100.
Hmm.
Saint Therese of Lisieux was a melancholic. And what's interesting is with the saints, when you look at their early life, you can see their temperament quite prominently. But as their life evolves, as they grow in holiness, you can't necessarily distinguish what their primary temperament is because they've grown in the virtues of the other
Yeah.
temperaments. And lastly, we have the phlegmatic, which is an introverted temperament, slow to react, quick to move on. These are your peacemakers. Like they do not want to ruffle feathers. They don't want any type of conflict. So they're going to do anything they can to avoid conflict. They're very service oriented. They like their schedules, but they are sometimes called the lazy temperament because their temptation is sloth.
I love it. That is so amazing. It's just like, I think what is beautiful too is what you said at the beginning. We all have these within us. Because as you're saying, it's like there's different moments where, depending on the situation, I will react in a very different way.
Yes.
But I can see, I have never done the test or found out where I am.
Mhm.
But it's impressive because as you're saying them, I'm like, oh yeah, I see me there. Oh yeah, I see me there. But yeah.
Yes. And again, it's not that you don't have them all, because, like you said, situationally,
Mhm.
and as we get older, we learn to kind of grow in each of these
Yeah.
virtues. But it's what would your natural reaction be? So if you think back to being a kid, the choleric is probably someone who's fairly competitive. Do they like
Hmm.
to win at things? Cholerics can tend toward pride because they think that they're always right.
Mm, okay. Yeah.
So you kind of look at those things. And another way it's really helpful is in coaching, if I say the word goal, that might be really motivating for a choleric. They need and often desire goals to help them
Hmm.
move forward because they like to achieve things. The sanguine, if you say the word goal, they're going to be no, like, no thanks. That's not interesting to me. But if you talk to them about what would you love to create if you didn't have any time constraints or monetary constraints, and that would be something that would be more exciting to them. So the language that we can use based on your temperament can be really helpful.
Love it.
It's also incredibly helpful in our relationships because we understand that not everyone operates the same way that we do.
Hmm.
So if I am a choleric and I have someone in my workspace who is a phlegmatic, and I come in and I'm like guns a-blazing, right? And very direct for the phlegmatic, that's going to make them retreat into their shell. Or in a relationship, the choleric might be kind of nagging, and that again makes the phlegmatic retreat. What they actually need is encouragement,
So
which is
it's
the
so
opposite
interesting.
of what we
Yeah.
do, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
sanguine melancholic, we look at ideal conditions. This is another thing that I think is so super helpful. The sanguine wants to talk things out when something's wrong and they want to move on, and they want you to cheer up and they want to make you feel better. But the melancholic needs time to really process their emotions. They need quiet time and space. So if you were a mother and you've got little ones at home and your husband's sanguine, like, let's go out, let's be around people, let's have fun. Why are you always so serious? Why does everything always have to be planned? That can really eat away at you because that's not your natural state, is you
Yeah.
need that quiet time and you need that space.
I love it. Yeah, and it's just being authentic, right? It's just like checking in what we need as well and what our well in my case is what my spouse needs and getting to know them in that sense is so cool. And I guess you're saying this, I think a lot of this is like within because it's different training, but for me it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see it in coaching.
Yeah.
But it's just like I didn't know any of this and I love that you're sharing this with us today because it's such a powerful thing to check, especially around this like with our children. That's one that I'm like, ooh, I wonder what they are because we process things so differently from one another.
Yes. And it truly changes the way that you interact with them and the way that you
Hmm.
speak to them because they have different needs.
Yeah.
And if you are choleric and your child's choleric, you're probably arguing a lot
Hmm.
because everyone wants the last word.
Hmm. I'm wondering in here. I'm like, I'm gonna go do this like right after, and then I'm gonna call you about it and tell you what I found out. This is really cool. It's very, very interesting. But yeah, I love that. And I think one of the things you said is those questions that we ask is one of my favorite questions to ask my clients is like, if there was no limitation, what would you do? What is God calling you to do? Because I am one that I love a goal, but rarely. I'm like, let me just be in God's timeline. Whatever
Mhm.
works in God's timeline is what I'm good with. But it's a desire to grow that I think pushes me more than anything. Is yeah, is that more than a goal, is what you were saying. It's like if I
Mhm.
could create anything, what would it be? That's what motivates me. I'm like, ooh, let's create things. And I feel like a lot of my clients are like that. They're very open to creation and growth and all that
Mhm.
stuff. I love that. That's fantastic. Love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh my goodness. I do want to know, like, if you could share something with Catholic women who are out there who feel like they might be interested in coaching or they want help, but they're scared. Like, they're scared of the investment, they're scared of the commitment, the time commitment, and sometimes even the question commitment. Am I really willing to be questioned and be not challenged, but kind of question and asked to be curious by this coach? What would you say to them?
Yeah. I would go back to we never make decisions out of fear. Fear does not come from the Lord.
Mhm.
So if there's any part of you that feels hesitant about what if we get into a topic that I'm not comfortable with? First of
Yeah.
all, a coach isn't going to push you into a topic that you're
Hmm.
not comfortable with. They are there to meet you where you are. And especially if you're working with a Catholic coach, a lot of this is really going to be Holy Spirit led. It's not the same
Yes.
as spiritual direction, but at least I know in my sessions and from the time I've spent with you, we pray before we begin,
Hmm.
right? And the Holy Spirit is really the one who is initiating this. Also, coaches are not there to give you constant advice. They might give you some suggestions, but it's really you. I mean, we are helping you to see and mirror back what is already within you. And so, yeah, that can be a little bit vulnerable to look at and
Yeah.
look at what's inside of us. But the growth that comes is so undeniable.
Yeah.
So if you are frustrated with where you are, you're probably sitting there because it's comfortable. And what I mean by comfortable isn't that you enjoy it. I mean, it feels safe because you already know what that discomfort feels like.
Hmm.
Whereas if you go into a coaching session, it's a new kind of uncomfortable that you might not have experienced before. And so it can feel scary. But we go back to trust in the Lord. And when it comes to financials, 100%, I am not a person who spends a lot of money on frivolous things. I don't, unless it's a good book. I will impulse buy a book. I will impulse buy a book all the time, but I don't spend a lot of money on those other types of things, especially when it comes to investing in myself, because again, I have kids and I think, oh, well, they're going to need all these things. But this is an investment that's worth it. I mean, you started coaching because you got coached and you saw the
Hmm.
transformation. I'm
Yeah.
in coaching and I saw the transformation and the confidence that comes, the peace that comes, the support of having someone else who just gets it, who knows where you've been and knows what's on the other side and who is just going to help you and pray for you and help you work through those barriers. Um, the investment is worth it because it's going to make you a better mom. It's going to make you a better wife. It's going to make you better at your job. And I know one of the things with my specific type of coaching is we create a plan of life where you are consistently making space for God in your day. And when you do that, not only is everything more
Hmm.
clear, not only are you more confident, you're actually more productive because you know where your energy is supposed to be going. And you have the confidence to let go of the things that you're not supposed to be picking up. So often we're picking up all of these things that were for other people. The Lord meant for other people, and it's a gift to them for them to be able to do it. But we feel like we have to step in and fix it.
Yeah.
Like we have to fix everybody else's stuff. And when we start going through coaching, we start to recognize those places where we're doing that and
Hmm.
we can take a step back from it.
I love it.
Lastly, the biggest one I think for me is coaching is so much discernment of spirits, which you may not be familiar with, but St. Ignatius of Loyola, discernment of spirits, St. Thomas Aquinas, understanding the how the will and the intellect work together. Coaching through a Catholic lens is so much a way to win the spiritual battle, which we are in whether we want to be or not. And
Hmm.
if we think we're not in it, we're letting Satan win because we're in it regardless. And so, coaching is a way to, like you said earlier, build that foundation of human formation so that our spiritual life can grow and we can win that battle. So, I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yes. I love it. As you said that, I had chills because it's exactly what it is. We are in constant battle with him. He wants us to not move. He wants us to not get help. He wants us to stay stuck. He wants us to not go after those big dreams. I always think of like, as I'm putting this retreat together, he doesn't want me to do this. He's constantly like, come on, just put it down. You don't need to do this. Of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. But God does, and God needs us, and He wants us to participate in His miracles and in this lifetime that He gave us. So I love it. It's fantastic.
Amen.
I love it. Okay, what one of the things that I always ask my guests to share, and I am not sure if I told you about this, so I
You
might
did.
put you in the spot. Okay, perfect. I did. Awesome. So glad. Holy Spirit moving. One of the things that I love to ask is to share your favorite saint and to share your favorite quote.
Okay. So, favorite saint, I mean, Mary, number one, because she's the mediatrix of all graces. But aside from Mary, because I feel like she's a given, I mentioned Saint Teresa of Avila because she found me when I didn't even know that I needed her. And I feel like I pray a litany of saints every day because I think God knows I need so many different ones to intercede for me. But Saint Teresa of Avila just opened up the spiritual for me. And like I said, that doorway to the interior castle through prayer and reflection, I just didn't even know. I didn't even know. And I don't feel like she's someone who sugarcoats things. She is very specific. It doesn't matter how far you progress in the spiritual life. You are never out of the realm of being swiped down from Satan. Like you have to be persistent. You have to keep praying. You have to keep going to the sacraments. And so she just reminds me that just keep going. Like God's right there. He's got you. Never stop. You just keep going, keep responding to the call that he puts on you because he initiates and then we seek him. And it's just this constant cycle of love back and forth. And so never settle for less than sainthood. I think that's kind of what I get from Saint Teresa of Avila. And she just reminds me, like, we've got this, but keep going. And it is a climb. It's a climb. So just never stop. And then my favorite quotes, this has just been one that's kind of been with me recently. So I have a lot of favorite quotes, but this is from Thomas Kempis, and he says, praise adds nothing to your holiness, nor does blame take anything from it. You are what you are, and you cannot be said to be better than you are in God's sight. And I think that this is so important, especially for the women that I work with, or when I get caught up in, I launched something and people didn't say what I wanted them to say about it, or nobody told me I did something well today. And how do I take that as part of my self-worth? Praise does not make us holier.
Yeah.
The only praise that we need to seek is from the Lord. So at the end of the day, he can say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And yes, we can still be motivated by praise, but it is not the thing that makes us holy. We really have to look to the Lord because if we look at our culture, the things that get praised right now are not helping us get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how can I just kind of step away from that when I feel like I'm striving and recognize, you know what? People might praise me for this, but if God's not asking me to do it, then it's not the right thing and it's not going to bear the most fruit. So I can take a step back. And if someone criticizes me for that decision, again, it doesn't take anything from my pursuit of holiness, my pursuit of sainthood.
Fantastic. Fact. 100% fact. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
and
welcome.
my love, thank you so much for coming. I also want you to share where people can find you. Share all the links, and I will also add them to the description. But you go ahead and share.
Yeah, so my website is KylieMHein.com, KylieMHein. You can also find me on Instagram at Kylie M. Hein. Those are kind of the two main places. And then I have a podcast called Persistence in Prayer. So I interview guests. New episodes come out every Tuesday, and we talk about how to get through the day through coaching aspects, but also we talk a lot about the spiritual life in prayer and how we can make space for God in the everyday busyness.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are ready to dive deeper into creating an aligned life with God at the center of it all, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consultation call with me. This is your chance to explore what is possible for you and to take the next step towards living with more clarity, peace, and joy. Sign up today. The link is in the description. I also want to invite you to leave a review if you have been enjoying these episodes, and make sure to share it with a friend. That way God can reach more and more amazing Catholic women. All right, until next time, God bless.